The Sunday morning light, fractured into sapphire and ruby, bled through the tall, stained glass windows of Providence Chapel in Detroit. It painted shifting patterns across the polished wooden floor. Nia West's sensible heels, usually a comforting rhythm, sounded jarringly loud in the quiet hallway. Each click echoed, a sharp counterpoint to the quiet reverence of the early hour. Another Sunday. Another chance to make a difference with the outreach program, she thought. Her hand reaching for the pastor's office door. It was slightly ajar. Odd. Pastor Samuel was always so meticulous. Then a low sound. A muffled moan, followed by hushed whispers. Nia's fingers, already poised to knock, froze midair. Her breath hitched. This wasn't the hushed murmur of sermon preparation. This was intimate. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. Every instinct screamed at her to turn, to walk away, to pretend she hadn't heard. But a different urge, a dark, insistent whisper, compelled her forward. Slowly, agonizingly, she pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. Her blood ran cold. On the very desk donated by Elder Gaines, the one where countless prayers had been offered, stood Pastor Samuel Williams. And with him, tangled and exposed, was Keisha Ellis. The image seared itself into Nia's mind. Disgust warred with a searing sense of personal betrayal. How could he? How could they? But beneath the revulsion, a strange, potent heat began to bloom in her chest. A power. A raw, undeniable leverage. Nia pushed the door fully open. The hinges, usually silent, let out a loud, drawn-out creak that shattered the chapel's morning calm. Pastor Samuel's shoulders slumped. He ran a hand over his neatly trimmed beard, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Fine," he conceded, his voice barely a whisper. "But this stays between the three of us. No one else." Nia smiled, a tight, cold expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, our secret." She knew the weight of this victory, a power she hadn't sought but now possessed. They quickly arranged to meet later that evening at Pastor Samuel's private apartment, a place he kept separate from his family home, for late-night sermon preparation. As Pastor Samuel, Nia, and Keisha emerged from the office, heads down, a flickering light drew attention to the end of the hallway. A figure, almost part of the shadows, was by a utility closet. It was Marcus M.J. Jones, the church's longtime maintenance worker, quietly adjusting a pipe. He had arrived early to fix a small leak. He'd heard everything. Every hushed word, every sharp accusation, every desperate plea. He watched them leave, then slipped away unnoticed. The knowledge he carried felt heavy, a different kind of justice forming in his mind. 3 years ago, his daughter Kelly had sought guidance from Pastor Samuel, struggling with addiction. The pastor had dismissed her struggles as a lack of faith. 2 months later, she was gone. Now MJ saw an opening, a chance for something more than just personal peace. Weeks blurred into a cycle of clandestine meetings at Pastor Samuel's apartment. Located in a nondescript building across town, it was sparsely furnished. A bedroom, a small living area with theological texts scattered on a desk, a kitchenette. The walls were thin, forcing hushed conversations, a constant whisper of deceit. For Nia, the initial surge of power diminished, replaced by a growing shame she fought to ignore. She told herself this was simply what she was owed after years of loyal dedication to a church that often overlooked her. Yet, in the quiet solitude of early mornings, sleep often eluding her, she questioned the person she had become. Keisha seemed to fragment with each passing day. What began as a passionate affair with Pastor Samuel now felt poisoned by Nia's presence. She had truly believed Samuel's promises, his words about leaving his wife. Now certainty had evaporated, replaced by gnawing doubt. Pastor Samuel walked a precarious path. His public persona, the charismatic leader, clashed violently with his private betrayals. Each Sunday, he stood at the pulpit, preaching morality, his eyes carefully avoiding the 2 women in the congregation who knew the full extent of his duplicity. The strain began to show. Dark circles under his eyes, a slight tremor in his hands, and a sharp impatience his wife Beverly started to notice. 6 weeks into their arrangement, the 3 met on a rainy Tuesday evening. The air in the small living area was thick, suffocating. Minutes passed in silence, each person lost in their own misery. "This can't continue." Keisha finally broke the quiet, her voice raw. "We're destroying ourselves." Nia looked up sharply, a clear threat in her tone. "Are you backing out?" "No, Keisha trailed off, then squared her shoulders. "Yes, maybe I am. This isn't right, Nia. None of this is right. Pastor Samuel, who had been staring out the window at the rain-streaked glass, turned. Keisha is right, he said quietly. This has gone too far. I've betrayed my wife, my children, my congregation, and my God. I need to confess. Panic clawed at Nia's chest. A confession would implicate her, destroy her standing in the community. You can't, she pleaded, her voice a desperate whisper. Think about the church, your family. I am thinking about them, Pastor Samuel replied. Continuing like this only makes things worse. The guilt consumes me. I can barely look my wife in the eye. So that's it? Nia's voice rose despite her efforts. You two made your mess, dragged me into it, and now you want to claim moral superiority? Keisha stood, her expression hardening. You weren't dragged into anything, Nia. You blackmailed us. You saw an opportunity and took it. The truth of Keisha's words stung, but Nia refused to yield. And what about you? The devoted deaconess sleeping with a married man? Don't pretend you're innocent. I never said I was innocent. Keisha shot back. But at least I'm trying to do the right thing now. As their argument escalated, a subtle sound went unnoticed, a thin envelope sliding under the apartment door. Pastor Samuel moved to leave the room, then stopped, spotting it. What's this? He muttered, bending to pick it up. The envelope was unmarked. Inside, a single piece of paper and several photographs. The paper held a stark message. I know what you've been doing. Meet me at the church office tomorrow at midnight, or these photos go public. The photographs showed them entering and leaving the apartment on multiple occasions, sometimes together, sometimes in pairs. The final photo was devastating, taken through the apartment window, showing all three in an intimate embrace. Someone's been watching us, Keisha whispered, her face pale with shock. Pastor Samuel sank onto the couch, the photos clutched in his trembling hands. This is it then, it's over. Nia paced the small room, her mind racing. Not necessarily, she said. We go to the meeting. Find out what they want. Maybe we can make a deal. More blackmail? Keisha asked, incredulous. That's your solution? Do you have a better one? Nia snapped. Because I don't see many options. Pastor Samuel looked up, his expression resigned. We'll go, he decided. All three of us will face this together. They agreed to meet outside the church at 11:45 p.m. the following night. As they left the apartment separately, a precaution they always took, each was consumed by their own thoughts, wondering who had discovered their secret and what price they would demand for silence. For weeks, Marcus M.J. Jones had been more than just the church's maintenance worker. He was a silent observer, a meticulous collector of truth. Every flickering bulb he claimed to fix, every squeaky hinge he oiled, was a cover. He'd installed tiny cameras in the apartment hallway, capturing grainy but clear footage of their secret entries and exits. He'd even found ways to record hushed conversations, piecing together fragments of their deceit. MJ had also painstakingly gathered financial records, tracing Pastor Samuel's subtle diversion of church funds to maintain that private apartment. His purpose was not simple gain. This was about Kelly, his daughter, whose life had ended after seeking help that Pastor Samuel had denied. His quest was for accountability, a debt long overdue. A fierce storm raged over Detroit. Rain lashed down, driven by a cold wind. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a low, guttural warning. Providence Chapel, usually a beacon, now stood silhouetted against the tumultuous sky. Its windows, dark and empty, stared out like vacant eyes. Occasional lightning flashes briefly illuminated the parking lot, revealing the rain-slicked asphalt. One by one, vehicles arrived. Pastor Samuel, then Nia, then Keisha. Each parked a discreet distance from the others, their movements hurried, shoulders hunched against the downpour. They entered through separate side doors, the weight of their fear pressing down. The grand sanctuary, usually filled with song, was now a cavern of silence, the familiar pews a silent, waiting congregation. Guided by the faint glow of emergency exit signs, they converged in the main hallway. The air was cold, thick with apprehension. Pastor Samuel's office door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling out onto the floor. He hesitated, then pushed it open. Marcus M.J. Jones sat calmly behind Pastor Samuel's desk, a thick folder laid out before him. Right on time, M.J. said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. Nia's eyes widened in recognition. M.J., what is this? Pastor Samuel stepped forward, attempting to regain control. Marcus, what is the meaning of this? Is this about money? MJ's lips curved into a humorless smile. "No, Pastor, this is about justice." MJ leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "My daughter Kelly came to you, Pastor. She was struggling, lost. She needed help, real help. You told her she just needed more faith. You dismissed her, sent her away." His voice cracked, but he quickly regained composure. 2 months after that, she overdosed. "Did you know that, Pastor?" Naya and Keisha exchanged stunned glances. This was a depth to MJ's bitterness they hadn't imagined. Pastor Samuel's face lost all color. I didn't know she passed. I am truly sorry, Marcus." "Save it," MJ cut him off, a chilling finality in his tone. "Your apologies mean nothing. Not now." He pushed the folder across the desk. "I have everything here. Photos, transcripts of conversations, records showing church funds paying for your little hideaway. I want the truth to come out." Pastor Samuel stammered, "You can't do this, Marcus. It will destroy the church, everything we've built." "The church will survive," MJ countered, his voice firm. "It's the individuals who've corrupted it that need to be removed." Naya stepped forward, desperation coloring her words. "There must be another way, something we can offer." "My terms are simple," MJ stated. "All 3 of you resign, effective immediately. This Sunday, you will issue a statement to the congregation, a public admission of wrongdoing. Not every detail, but enough to acknowledge your actions." Keisha cried out, "Resign? We'll lose everything." "You ruined yourselves," MJ retorted, his eyes cold. "This is your choice. Refuse, and every single detail goes public along with the proof." Pastor Samuel looked at Naya, then Keisha, a heavy silence in the room. There was no escape. "We agree," he finally said, his voice a defeated whisper. "We will resign this Sunday." As the 3 stood, a reluctant agreement hanging in the air, a subtle sound came from the doorway. A soft scuff, a muffled gasp. The office door, which they believed was closed, was slightly ajar. Outside, in the quiet hallway, Beverly Williams stood frozen. Tears streamed down her face, a silent testament to the devastating words she had just overheard. She had come to drop off Pastor Samuel's forgotten medication, something she did often. She had heard every single word. Her foot caught on a loose floorboard. The sharp, unexpected creak echoed loudly in the still church. MJ's head snapped up. He strode to the door, pulling it open. Beverly stood there, illuminated by the dim hallway light, her face a mask of profound pain and disbelief. Pastor Samuel's eyes widened, draining of all color. "Beverly?" Beverly's voice was steady despite the tears, cutting through the silence like glass. "Can you really explain this, Samuel?" The confrontation had just found an entirely new, agonizing dimension. Beverly Williams stepped into the office, her composure gone, replaced by a fierce, raw pain. Her eyes, wide and tear-filled, darted between Pastor Samuel, Keisha, and Naya. "How long?" she demanded, her voice barely a whisper, then rising to a strained cry. "How long has this been going on?" MJ made a move to exit, but Beverly's hand shot out, grasping his arm. "No, you stay. I want to hear everything, from everyone." Her gaze settled on Pastor Samuel. "Start, Samuel, explain this." Pastor Samuel, defeated, began his halting confession. He spoke of the affair with Keisha, his voice thick with shame. Then, he spoke of Nia's blackmail, a bitter admission. Beverly listened, her face contorting. She let out a short, bitter laugh, directing it at Nia. 15 years, Nia. 15 years I've known you. I trusted you with my children, with my home, my God." Her voice broke. "And that's not all," MJ interjected, opening his folder. "Pastor Samuel used church funds to pay for the apartment, to keep this going." He slid a document across the desk, a ledger page highlighting suspicious expenditures. Beverly stumbled back, as if physically struck by this new revelation. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sob. "Financial misconduct too?" Her eyes, now blazing, met Pastor Samuel's. "What happened to you, Samuel?" The office door swung open once more. Elder David Cole stood in the doorway, confusion etched on his face. "Pastor Samuel, I received a text about an emergency meeting. What is happening here?" MJ quickly denied sending a message. Keisha stepped forward, her face streaked with tears, but her voice steady. "I texted him, Elder Cole. When we arrived, I realized I couldn't go through with this deception any longer. The church deserves better." Pastor Samuel looked at Keisha, a flash of betrayal in his eyes. Beverly straightened, a sudden steel entering her posture. The decision was made. She turned fully to Elder David Cole, her voice clear and unwavering despite the pain. "Elder Cole, there's a lot you need to know." She recounted everything. The affair, Nia's blackmail, the misappropriated funds, MJ's evidence. Elder David Cole listened, his face pale, his composure shattered by each word. Pastor Samuel stood silently, his head bowed in defeat. Beverly turned back to Elder David Cole, her gaze firm. "Call an emergency meeting of all the elders. Tonight, we're going to deal with this now. Not Sunday, now." The elders arrived swiftly. The night stretched into long hours of painful confessions, the truth laid bare. Decisions were made. Pastor Samuel, Nia, and Keisha were removed from all church positions immediately. The financial misconduct would be reported. A statement would be prepared for the congregation. Later, in the quiet of the empty hallway, Pastor Samuel tried to approach Beverly, to speak, to beg for forgiveness. But she walked past him without a word, her face a mask of controlled pain, a wall erected between them. Nia sat alone in a pew in the sanctuary, staring at the large wooden cross above the altar. The storm had passed, leaving a quiet in its wake. She didn't hear Keisha approach until she sat down beside her. "I never meant for any of this to happen," Keisha said softly. Nia shook her head. "None of us did, but we all made choices that led us here." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of those choices pressing down. "What will you do now?" Keisha finally asked. Nia sighed. "I don't know. Leave Detroit probably. Start over somewhere new." "Me too, I guess," Keisha replied. "There's nothing left for me here." As they contemplated their uncertain futures, neither noticed the figure watching them from the shadows at the back of the sanctuary. Marcus M.J. Jones observed the two women, feeling neither victory nor satisfaction. Just a hollow sense that justice, when it finally came, was not as healing as he'd hoped it would be. Outside, the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky over Detroit. A new day was coming, bringing with it a public reckoning that would forever change Providence Chapel and everyone connected to it. The story of Providence Chapel is a stark reminder that even within sacred walls, human frailties can lead to devastating consequences. It teaches us about the corrosive power of secrets, the heavy price of hypocrisy, and how unchecked desire can blind individuals to the damage they inflict on those they claim to lead and love. Nia West, driven by a twisted sense of justice and a desperate grab for power, discovered that revenge, once tasted, often leaves a bitter residue. Pastor Samuel, a man meant to guide, betrayed the very trust placed in him, not just through his actions, but through his attempts to conceal them, digging himself deeper into a pit of deceit. Keisha Ellis, caught in the undertow of an illicit affair, found herself losing everything she held dear, and Marcus M.J. Jones, seeking retribution for a profound personal loss, ultimately realized that true justice offers no solace for an aching heart. Beverly Williams's strength in the face of unimaginable betrayal stands as a testament to resilience, a reminder that even when foundations crumble, integrity can remain. And Elder David Cole's immediate action underscores the vital role of accountability when institutions are tested. This tale from Detroit reveals that no one is immune to temptation, and the consequences of moral compromise reverberate far beyond the individuals involved, shattering communities and leaving lasting scars. It challenges us to look beyond polished exteriors, to question what lies beneath, and to understand that the pursuit of truth, however painful, is essential for any real healing to begin. If this story resonated with you, if it sparked a thought about the complexities of human nature and justice, then engage with us. What are your thoughts on Nia's choices? Do you believe MJ found the justice he sought? Share your opinions in the comments below. Like this video if you want to see more stories that explore the hidden truths behind closed doors. And subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into real events and their profound impacts. Your engagement helps us bring these vital stories to light.